Hi, my name's John Cordy and I like to give kind of warnings about stuff on this channel quite often. I'd warn you not to try heroin. I tried it once and it's sort of like a gateway drug, and I spent a lot of time staring at a gateway, and across from the gateway was a pack of donkeys just rabidly watching me. So don't do drugs. In this video I wanted to look at the Podgo, sort of evaluate some of my thoughts on it, but also share some tips with you about how you can optimize what you've got in there. Specifically, I think looking at amps, because there's basically some of the amps will take up far more DSP than others, so I wanted to give you some tips on that. So hopefully that'll be vaguely interesting. Feel free to like and subscribe if you get anything out of it. There's plenty of other stuff on the channel, a lot of it Helix focused, a lot of it Podgo focused, so there should be some stuff that's useful, hopefully. We're going to zoom into here now. So I'm going to guess that you already know a little bit about the Podgo, but in case you didn't, it's a little bit different from some of the other more recent Line 6 products in that you essentially have some elements of the signal chain which are fixed like this. So if you start a new preset, over on this side you've got a volume pedal which is always there, you've got a wah pedal which is always there, you've got two free blocks, and you've got send and return which is always there, you've got an amp model which is always there, a cab model which is always there, or IR, you can have IRs as well, an EQ which is always present, and then two other blocks. So essentially we got four blocks that we can play with to add our other effects and stuff. Also, in terms of volume pedal, you've got a stereo width here, or a pan. So those are, I kind of like having that stereo width. You can do some things with that. And then the EQ, you've got various options. So you could do lots of different stuff with that EQ. You know, you could use it for a boost. You could use it to give a kick in the low end. You could have it doing different stuff on different snapshots. So lots of stuff that you could do with that. So here's kind of one of the presets that I just came up with today. Playing with the glitch delay, which is relatively new with the Podgo, but in this particular preset, what have I got going on? We've got a wah there, which is just there because it has to be. We got a deluxe compressor. We got a Scream 808, so a tube screamer. I'm using the litigator amp model, and we'll come back to that in a second because there's some stuff that I need to tell you about it. There's a low high shelf EQ. There's a cab. There's a delay. There's a reverb. And then at the end I've got this stereo width. So that's kind of an example of the typical stuff you can do. I like to use the glitz reverb as I really like the way it sounds, but it also doesn't use lots of DSP. And so when we talk about DSP, it's worth noting that on the Podgo you're going to potentially feel like you have slightly less DSP available to use than a typical HX Stomp or something like that, because you've got some of these things which are always present, and so they're always, you know, using up some processing power in the Podgo relative to what would be available in the Helix or HX Stomp. So it's worth knowing, I think, which amps take up the most DSP, and you can use Ben Vesco's website for this. I'll give it a link in the description, but he's done really good work on this across all of the Line 6 products to tell you which ones are the ones to use for least DSP and which ones to use the most. So for instance, if we used the Brit Trem Jump, that's a very high DSP usage. Likewise, the Brit Plexi Jump is, because essentially you're using two models kind of put together. Solo Lido D is again one of the highest DSP usage ones. And the very highest of all at the moment is Das Benzin Lead. So for instance, if we use Das Benzin Lead, I'm going to imagine we're going to struggle to put in certain things. So I'll put in a Searchlights as well. That's one of the highest reverbs, and then at that point I'm going to guess we start to see grayed out blocks. I was expected to run out of DSP. Okay, so there. Now once we've got the flanger, the Searchlights reverb, and Das Benzin Lead, although we got two other blocks free, we can't really use them because we've chosen things which use quite a bit of DSP. So if we were using a boost here instead, maybe, then a delay at the end. Quite a lot of stuff which isn't available here. And then we've still got one block free, but essentially what is happening is that we're using blocks which are using quite a lot of DSP, and therefore we have to be quite selective about what we use. Now Glitz is a reverb which uses a bit less DSP, so we may then find things a bit easier to use. So although I'm using that Das Benzin lead, which is the most intensive DSP there, if I use, for instance, the Glitz reverb, I can still fit on 2 additional delays. So I think you'll find, if you're careful with this stuff, that you've still got enough DSP to do quite a lot of the things that you want to do. So as I say, the most intensive are Brit Trem Jump, Plexi Jump, Solo Lead OD, Das Benzin Lead. Those are the 4 models which use your most DSP in the amp world, and so when you're using them you're going to have to make some choices about what else you use. Now conversely, the amp models that use the least DSP include one of my favourite amp models of all anyway, the Line 6 Litigator, the Line 6 Badonk, which is one of the most versatile, also the Fender Champ, so US Small Tweed, and Jazz Rivet, so really nice modern clean tones with the Jazz Rivet, so that's cool, and also the Super Pro, so this one uses really low DSP as well. So as I say, the Badonk, the Litigator, the Fender Champ, as in the US Small Tweed, the Jazz Rivet and the Super Pro, those 5 amp models use very small amounts of DSP relative to those other ones that we talked about that are expensive in DSP terms. And then I'm imagining we'll probably be able to go pretty crazy in terms of the rest of the models that we can use. So, you know, Air Apparent, that's one of the more DSP intensive, or even maybe a fuzz. Industrial fuzz. So you see there's still some grade out here like ballistic fuzz. KWB uses quite a lot as well, but essentially there we're using dual delay, KWB, the Jazz Rivet, which is, as I say, using less DSP, the Searchlights, which is one of the more DSP intensive reverbs, and the multi-tap, so I'll turn that diffusion up. So there you have it. That's basically what I wanted to talk about a little bit today. The Badonk, the Litigator, the Fender Champ, the Jazz Rivet and the Supro, those are kind of the cheapest DSP cost to you on the Podgo, and those will give you the most kind of extra DSP or available DSP to use other potential blocks that you might want to try, and, you know, other things that you might want to, you know, so if you're using like flanges, harmonic flanges or choruses and stuff, that will give you the most possible available DSP to use these other effects. And also worth noting then that the most expensive in terms of DSP cost go from Das Benzin Lead, that's the top of the list, Solo Lead OD, Plexi Jump and Brit Trem Jump. Those are the most expensive, with a cost of about 40% of your DSP each of those. So hopefully that's vaguely interesting for those of you that are trying to build some presets and you're wondering, okay, why can't I use these extra blocks and stuff? I thought I could basically do whatever I want with this. There are DSP costs associated with each of these models, and I would check out the Ben Vesco allocation tables if you wanted to know more about this. But as I say, Badonk, Litigator, Fender Champ, Jazz Rivet and Supro are probably your amp models that will get you the most out of the Podgo. Hopefully that was vaguely interesting. I'll catch you for another video soon. And if you want to try my Podgo presets, feel free to check in the description. It's £3 and 1p to try all of my presets, and all my future presets will go in that folder as well, so hopefully it represents fairly okay value for money. Also, there's a buy me a coffee link which I haven't talked about for a long time. You could consider using that if you do get anything out of this channel, but only do that if you find some joy in what I do, and if you can really afford to. Catch you soon. Cheers.